We'll go ahead and get started. Happy Tuesday, everyone. I'm Hamza Tariq, Director of Marketing at Sirius Support. Welcome to our session on preparing for US mandates for human customer support. By way of introduction, today's session is designed for leaders navigating the shift from AI-first support to compliance-driven human support. Hosting today's session is Craig Mills, CEO and co-founder of Sirius Support. Craig brings over 20 years of customer support leadership experience, serving organizations and customers around the world. He'll walk us through the pending legislation and share practical recommendations on how customer support leaders can adapt and stay ahead in this evolving regulatory landscape. So without further delay, please join me in welcoming Craig Mills.
Thank you, Hamza. Welcome, everybody. Great to see everybody join. And thank you for joining today's session. As Hamza said, I'm Craig Mills, the CEO of Sirius Support. Based on the number of questions we've been getting from customers about emerging regulations and what they could mean for support operations, we've established this as a monthly update series, built specifically for customer support leaders who want to stay informed and stay ahead of the rules as they evolve. Each month, we'll bring you the latest updates, unpack the implications, and share actionable guidance to help you prepare before the mandates arrive. Today's focus is on a major shift already reshaping how organizations think about service delivery, the move from AI-first support into compliance-driven human support. For years, automation has led the conversation, how to scale faster, handle more volume at lower costs. But what we're seeing now from US regulators is a very clear signal that a human fallback is no longer just an optional item. This represents a turning point, not just for compliance, but also for risk management and customer trust. At Sirius Support, we've built our reputation on helping organizations adapt quickly to change, whether that means scaling fast-growing businesses, supporting government agencies in disaster recovery, or now helping enterprises prepare for new regulatory requirements as they emerge. We're adept at rapid situation assessment and activation, ensuring that when conditions shift, whether driven by growth, crisis, or compliance, our clients can respond confidently and maintain continuity. You'll see plenty of data and insight today, because at Sirius, accountability and transparency are in our DNA. We believe in measurement, clarity, and performance that can be proven, not just promised. My goal today is that you leave with both a clear understanding of where the regulatory momentum stands and practical ways to prepare your organization for what's next. So with that, let's start by looking at the current landscape, what's changed in the last month, and what signals we're seeing for the months ahead. We'll get started with what really matters the most. According to McKinsey, AI tools now resolve 80% of customer support tickets across industries. And in some digital native sectors, that number is going to be even higher. That's an extraordinary efficiency gain. It's reduced average handle times, lowered the costs, and allowed companies to scale service without scaling their headcount. For many organizations, AI has become the backbone of customer experience. But here's where the tension lies. A 2025 CX Today survey found that 61% of customer experience leaders actually support government mandates requiring guaranteed access to a human agent. Think about that for a second. These aren't frustrated customers calling for change. These are the very industry leaders themselves saying the pendulum has swung far too far towards automation. And why? Well, because AI resolves issues quickly. It often struggles with edge cases, empathy, emotional nuance, the very moments that define brand trust. And customers feel it. A PwC consumer study earlier this year reported that nearly 60% of US consumers believe that companies have lost touch with the human element in customer service. Other research from Gartner echoes that, showing that when human interaction is absent in complex cases, customer churn risk increases by over 25%. And regulators are responding. The message coming from Washington, Sacramento, and other capitals around the world is very clear. It's not about eliminating AI, It's about restoring accountability and human accessibility. So the question for your organization is this: if new laws require one press access to a live human agent, and your escalation paths strong enough to withstand that scrutiny? That's what this entire series is about, helping you assess where you stand today and prepare for the environment that's fast approaching. Now, if we zoom out and look at the bigger picture, the story isn't about what's already been passed. It's about the pressure and where that's building. There's still no federal law that requires live human agents for customer support, but the pace of scrutiny, policymaking, and overall regulatory alignment is clearly accelerating. California continues to set the tone. Governor Newsom recently signed 2 new AI-related bills. SB 243, which focuses on transparency for companion chatbots, and AB 853, which broadens AI transparency obligations. While it does stop short of customer support service chatbots, these laws don't mandate human access yet, but they expand oversight and signal exactly where legislators are headed. At the federal level, the Keep Call Centers in America Act is still sitting in committee. Progress has obviously been delayed by the recent federal shutdown, and that all of those bills include AI, consumer protection, and customer support related bills. But now that the federal government is back to work, we're already starting to see more activity. Staffers are returning to the pending AI drafts, committees are rescheduling hearings, and regulatory bodies are re-engaging on issues tied to transparency, fairness, and consumer rights. That means the pace is likely to accelerate from here and not slow down. Meanwhile, states like Maine and New York continue to move independently, introducing AI discourse laws that reinforce a consistent message. Customers deserve clarity, accountability, and a clear path to a human. So while no one is being forced yet to provide a live agent, the direction of travel is unmistakable. Regulators are aligning around transparency as the first step, and access is the next logical item. Which is why, from a readiness standpoint, this is the moment to start building or modernizing your human support infrastructure. Whether your priority is compliance, brand trust, or customer satisfaction, the organizations preparing their human layer today will be the ones best positioned tomorrow. And that's exactly why we're committed to bring you these monthly updates, to help you track the landscape, anticipate what's coming, and ensure you're ready when regulatory expectations become regulatory requirements. Now, let's talk about risk exposure, because it's broader than most organizations really realize. According to the Phonemon Institute, the average cost of a non-compliance fine in the US is $4.4 million. That's before you factor in legal costs, remediation, and the time and distraction that regulatory action brings. For larger enterprises operating in multiple jurisdictions, that risk multiplies quickly. And then there's the cost that doesn't show up on a balance sheet right away, the loss of trust. The Edelman Trust Barometer shows that 67% of consumers will switch brands when trust is broken. In the context of customer support, that trust can be lost in an instant. One failed escalation, one opaque chatbot experience, or one customer who can't reach a human when it truly matters. Disclosure failures, unclear escalation paths, or inconsistent transparency directly erode that trust. And once lost, it's expensive and slow to rebuild. There's also operational exposure. If new rules mandate that companies must provide access to US-based or human-certified support organizations, companies are going to suddenly need to expand or reallocate staff to meet those requirements. That can mean higher labor costs, longer hiring cycles, and a need for rapid retraining or vendor transitions. Then you have commercial risk, which is often overlooked. Buyers, partners, and investors are already asking questions around proof of compliance, and the readiness of that in RFPs continues to increase, including questions around AI transparency, escalation guarantees, and human fallback processes. In other words, compliance is moving from a back office function into a frontline sales and trust signal. So the real question becomes, do you treat compliance as a cost center, something that you react to when forced, or could it be a competitive differentiator? The companies that lean into readiness now, who demonstrate accountability, transparency, and resilience, will be the ones regulators trust, customers stay loyal to, and competitors chase. We'll shift gears and talk about what readiness actually looks like. A strong compliance playbook isn't just a nice to have anymore. It's going to be essential for every organization operating in customer support. And here's what that playbook should include. First, you need to map out which rules apply to your industry and geography. Start by identifying where your customers are and which jurisdictions that could have oversight, either federal, state, or even international if you're serve global customers. For example, what applies in a health tech company under HIPAA will differ from what applies to an e-commerce brand under compliance consumer protection law. Knowing your exposure zones early helps prevent scrambling later. Second, standardize your disclosure and escalation SLAs. If your AI interacts with customers, your disclosures should be consistent, clear, concise, and easy to verify. The same goes for escalation. If a customer requests a human, your service level commitments should be written, tracked, and auditable. A regulator isn't going to accept it's handled differently by a different region. And third, implement real-time monitoring and auditing to ensure consistency. This is where most organizations fall short. Gartner recently reported that 73% of firms do not have real-time monitoring in place for AI disclosures. That's a huge blind spot. It means the majority of companies couldn't easily prove compliance, even if they're actually doing the right things operationally. Monitoring needs to be active, not reactive. Then fourth, prepare for annual certifications or self-certifications that some laws may soon require. We're already seeing language in draft legislation that mirrors SOC 2 or GDPR style certification models, where companies have to show, not just say, that they're compliant. Building that documentation muscle now will pay off later. I'd ask you this question. If a regulator audited you today, could you prove that every AI interaction was disclosed and that every human fallback request was honored? If the answer isn't an immediate yes, then that's your signal to start building your playbook today. The organizations that get this right early will not just avoid the fines, but will also gain trust with customers, regulators, and with partners. And that's where readiness becomes a competitive advantage, where compliance becomes a real differentiator for your brand. This quote really captures the mood of our industry right now. Laws should mandate the right to speak to a human. And what's interesting is this isn't just coming from regulators or policymakers anymore. It's coming from within the industry itself. As I referenced earlier on, it's the CX leaders, operational heads, and even AI strategists saying it's time. The pendulum has swung far too far towards automation, that customers and the professionals that serve them are calling for a reset. You can feel that alignment building. When customers, practitioners, and policymakers all start speaking the same language, the momentum will become unstoppable. We've seen this pattern before in data security or data privacy, cybersecurity, and accessibility. First, it's an expectation. Then it becomes a differentiator. And finally, it becomes a regulatory requirement. That's exactly where we are today with human access in customer support. The real strategic question every organization should be asking is this. If your competitors start marketing their compliance, promoting guaranteed human access as part of their brand promise, how will you position yourself? Because the shift is coming. In fact, some great forward-thinking brands are already running pilots where they feature a guaranteed human support badge. Not because it's required yet, but because it builds trust, credibility, and regulatory readiness. The companies that move first here will own the narrative. They'll not be seen as reacting to policy, but as leading the evolution of what responsible, human-centered AI support looks like. For years, our industry has operated under a simple assumption that we've often referred to as the 80-20 model. Roughly 80% of tickets can be handled by AI or automation, while the remaining 20% would escalate to human agents. That model worked beautifully for cost optimization. CFOs across the country will be happy with those metrics. It allowed leaders to scale while controlling any headcount and focusing human talent on high value or emotionally complex issues. But that old model is now being tested. Under the new regulatory direction, human fallback is no longer optional. It's expected and likely could soon be required. According to Forrester, 45% of firms currently rely on AI alone for more than 70% of their customer interactions. Those organizations are the ones most at risk. When mandates come into effect, they'll face immediate exposure. Not because AI failed, but because their human layer isn't built to flex. And this isn't just about a compliance risk, it's about resilience. If tomorrow 40% of your AI-handled tickets suddenly needed to be routed to humans, could your operation cope? Could you scale trained, brand-aligned human capacity within hours or days and not months? Because that's what regulators and customers are ultimately looking for, a reliable human safety net. The future of customer support isn't about abandoning AI. It's about building scalable, blended models where automation and people together work seamlessly. The organizations that win won't be those that automate the fastest, but those that can flex the fastest, expanding or contracting their human layer in real time without losing quality or compliance. That's where agility becomes your competitive advantage. So how do you do all of this? Well, the good news is there are practical strategies to add human capacity without ballooning your costs. This isn't about overbuilding teams or putting hundreds of agents on standby. It's about designing flexibility into your operating model. First, you can partner with on-demand US-based agents. Many organizations are building relationships with elastic support partners, teams that can activate within days, not months, to meet compliance requirements or handle sudden spikes in volume. Second, you can use shared pools that multiple business units or product lines can access. Instead of siloed teams, shared pools create efficiency and coverage across multiple time zones and functions. It's a smart way to scale without duplicating headcount. Third, consider a follow-the-sun staffing model. By distributing teams globally, you can maintain live human support around the clock without overburdening any single geography. This not only improves customer experience, but also provides redundancy if local capacity is constrained. And fourth, deploy predictive scheduling and demand modeling. AI can absolutely help here by forecasting ticket spikes and matching coverage to expected demand. Ensure that you're right-sized hour by hour. These are real levers that customer support leaders can pull today, not in theory, but in practice. And the market is clearly moving. The International Association of Outsourcing Professionals recently reported that 70% of BPO leaders plan to expand their US-based hiring this year. And that tells you everything you need to know. Demand for compliant, domestic human capacity is rising and fast. Which brings us to a critical question. If new regulations took effect tomorrow, do you already have a contingency partner who could add trained US agents within 30 days? For organizations that don't, this is the moment to start identifying those partners, testing those relations, and putting readiness plans in place. Because when the mandate arrives, agility won't be optional. It'll be the difference between compliance and chaos. As organizations move towards compliance-ready customer support, it's not just about adding human capacity. It's about evolving the routing logic that determines when and how humans step in. In the old automation mindset, the goal was to contain as many tickets as possible with AI or frontline automation. The success metric there was just deflection. But the new model, the success metric becomes appropriate escalation, knowing when AI is good enough and when it isn't. And here are 4 principles every routing model that needs to include. First, when AI confidence is low, the system should immediately escalate to a human. Don't let customers repeat themselves or get trapped in loops. Hand them off gracefully before any frustration builds. Second, customers should always have explicit transfer options to request a human at any time. Regulators are likely to require this, but even before they do, it's just good CX design. Giving customers agency builds trust. Third, any high risk or high value cases should default to a human handling from the start. Things like billing disputes or healthcare inquiries or even enterprise account issues. The reputational risk of mishandling those far outweigh any savings of automation. And fourth, your system must fail safe, meaning it should never block or deny access to a human, even if a process breaks or a rule misfires. Think of it as the emergency exit in your customer support architecture. And here's why that matters so much. PwC found that 89% of customers will leave a brand after just 2 bad service experiences. That's almost all of your customers gone. So escalation logic isn't just a compliance issue, it's a revenue protection strategy. Every failed handoff, every broken chatbot loop isn't just bad experience, it's lost lifetime value. The real question to ask your team is this: do your systems actually know when AI is good enough and when it isn't? Because in a compliance-driven environment, that awareness and that ability to hand off intelligently becomes the new measure of maturity. Right, let's bring this into something practical. Here's what a phased roadmap to compliance readiness looks like. Think of it as your playbook from we should probably start thinking about this to we're globally compliant and ready for anything. So first off, assess the gaps. Before you do anything, get clear on where you stand today. Map your current support flows, your AI escalation paths, your disclosure language, and identify where the cracks are. You can't fix what you can't see, and most companies haven't looked closely yet. Phase 1, design and pilot your fallback. Don't wait for the legislation to force your hand. Build and test a fallback to human workflow now. Even if a small pilot gives you data or proof points and confident your system can adapt. Phase 2, scale and certify compliance. Now you've proven the model works, scale it across your organization. Document it, audit it, and make sure you can prove consistency. When the certification requirements arrive, and they will, you'll be ready instead of scrambling. Phase 3, optimize and stress test capacity. Run simulations. Ask, what if AI goes down for a day? What if 40% of my tickets suddenly need human handling? The goal here isn't perfection. It's resilience under pressure. And then stage 4, globalize your approach. As new regulations roll out in the EU, the UK, and parts of Asia Pacific, the smartest organizations are harmonizing compliance across all of those jurisdictions. One framework, one standard, many markets. And here's the reality check. CCW Digital recently found that only 22% of firms have even piloted a compliance fallback model. That means nearly 80% are still waiting, hoping the rules will clarify before they act. But here's the thing, by the time the rules are final, it's too late to start from zero. So I'll leave you with this question. Are you waiting for the law, or are you piloting now so you're ready when it lands? Because readiness isn't just compliance, it's competitive advantage. And this roadmap is how you get there before anybody else does. Let's just take a moment to recap what we've covered and where this all points to next. First, US regulations are clearly moving towards a mandated human fallback. The writing's on the wall. Customers must have access to a human, and that access must be provable. Second, compliance and customer trust are no longer separate conversations. They've merged. How you meet regulatory expectations will directly shape how customers perceive your brand. Compliance has become the new trust currency. And third, the old 80-20 AI to human model, 80% handled by AI, 20% escalated to humans, is evolving fast. The next generation of customer support isn't about choosing between automation and empathy. It's about designing a system where both work in perfect sync, scalable, compliant, and ready for anything. That's exactly why the phased roadmap we discussed is so powerful. It gives you a path to transform without disruption. Step by step, you can evolve your operation, strengthen your fallback capability, and build trust before mandates arrive. And here's the reality check. Salesforce research shows that 71% of customers expect the ability to talk to a human at any point in their journey. That's not a niche preference or a legacy expectation. That's the new baseline. Customers want both the speed of AI and the safety of a human connection. The companies that deliver that balance will redefine what great service looks like. So as we look ahead, the opportunity isn't just to stay compliant, it's to lead the industry toward a model of humanized AI support that customers actually trust and love. That's the future we're building. And it's one that forward-thinking support organizations can start creating right now. Before we wrap up, let me just share a quick perspective on who we are at Sirius Support and why this conversation matters so much to us. Sirius Support is a global BPO partner, trusted by organizations in some of the most heavily regulated sectors in the world: finance, health, fintech, and beyond. Compliance isn't an add-on for us. It's built into our operating model. From data handling to escalation protocols, we design every process to meet the highest standards of accountability and transparency. We offer flexible staffing across US, nearshore, and global locations, giving clients the reach and agility they need to meet evolving regulations without overextending resources. Our clients trust us because we keep performance visible, measurable, and consistent. And that's reflected in one basic metric for us: a 95% client retention rate year after year. The takeaway is simple. We don't just provide outsourced agents, we provide compliance-ready, customer-centric support that scales with your business. That's what makes Sirius different. And it's exactly the kind of capability companies will need as these new rules take shape. Let me give you a quick example of what that looks like in practice. One of our longtime clients, Phi, the leading smart collar company for pets, came to us just before their seasonal peak a few years ago. They're growing at an incredible pace. Orders were surging, new customers were coming in every day, and their internal support team was completely maxed out. They knew that Black Friday would push them over the edge if they didn't act fast. We partnered with Phi several years ago that summer to get ahead of the curve. Within just a few weeks, we'd scaled their team from 3 agents to more than 20, fully trained, brand aligned, and ready to handle the rush. When peak season hit, volume spiked. Phi's support operation didn't just hold steady. They achieved a 98% customer satisfaction score right through Black Friday, one of the toughest stress tests any brand can face. That's the power of planning and building early. Flexible, scalable, compliance-ready support. It doesn't just keep you out of risk, it helps your brand shine under pressure and deliver exceptional experiences when it matters most. That's what readiness looks like, turning pressure into performance and growth into loyalty. Before we close today's session, let's talk about where you can go from here and how we can help you take practical next steps. First, the regulatory readiness assessment. This gives you a clear picture of your current support model and how it aligns with emerging US and global mandates. We'll point exactly where your compliance gaps are and what actions will make you audit ready and future-proof. It's fast, precise, and actionable. Second, the ROI calculator. This tool lets you model the financial impact of augmenting your in-house AI support with flexible human coverage. It quantifies not just cost savings, but the value of resilience, how to meet rising customer expectations today while preparing for tomorrow's rules. And then third, a strategy session. This is where we'll collaborate directly with your leadership team. We'll map your support strategy, compliance readiness, and growth objectives into one unified plan, tailored to your industry, scale, and goals. According to Deloitte, early movers in compliance cut their operational costs by nearly 30% compared to late adopters. That's proof that proactive beats reactive every time. So the message here is simple. Acting now isn't about avoiding penalties. It's about building advantage. I'd encourage you to start with one of these steps, whether it's the assessment, the calculator, or the strategy session, and begin turning compliance readiness into a genuine competitive edge. The organizations that prepare early won't just comply, they'll lead. So as we close, regulations requiring human support are on the way. The human fallback is fast becoming the new standard of trust and compliance. At Sirius Support, we're here to help you prepare, scale, and stay ahead, turning readiness into real competitive advantage. Again, I'm happy to jump on a call with you to discuss any specific requirements. Just indicate in the chat and Hamza will set up a time for us to speak directly. Finally, remember, the future belongs to the organizations that act early and build confidently. Thank you for joining our session today and being part of this important conversation. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next month, next update.